So the prophets of Hawaii traveled to the island of Kauai in an effort to reach the scattered remnant of the children of Israel. When we say remnant, we mean remnant. Kauai has a recorded population of slightly more than 300 black folks, and less than 5% of the population identify with having some Hispanic descent.
Out here, what we've seen in the past 4 hours is that we are scattered. Like, it's hard to find black people here. Now, is that the same thing you've come across, or do you kind of know where our people gather, or what has been your experience being out here?
I've noticed them here and there. I would say you don't really see them that often.
Right.
Or you would have to know where to be in order to see them.
Right.
You probably find them depending on what beach you go to, depending on the neighborhood you go to, depends on the reason that they're out here.
So when you say neighborhood, like, are there specific areas where you'll find Latinos or blacks here on this island? I know obviously it won't be like the mainland, but is there something like that here?
I would say so. I haven't been to many of the areas.
Okay.
I work at UPS.
Okay.
So that allows me to go to certain neighborhoods where I wouldn't even go to.
Right.
Instead of going the main route where the main road would go to the special route.
Right.
Shalom. So we at the Kauai Grove Mall, and we was walking by, we noticed something here. This is like a beauty salon parlor place, and we noticed lightning and removal. Not sure what that means, but when it comes to putting beauty products in a brown community, lightning is always a factor, even in the islands of Kauai, even in the island of Hawaii, on the island of Kauai, right? So this is just something we noticed. Also over here, if you come down, a couple stores down, you might not be able to see it, you'll see that there's a Hawaiian homestead annex here, right? Hawaiian homestead is where Hawaiians get housing and stuff for very cheap prices, sometimes free, sometimes for hundreds of dollars. So, and that's stationed right here in the mall to let you know there's even a distinction amongst a particular brown people and our people. So, some good information to know, some things you might not have known being outside on the mainland, but these are things that we face here in the communities on the islands here. Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ bless. We got some history here. We was able to stop at a little Kauai stop that shows it's like a historic district, and they have some pictures here, right? They have a figure here, right, wearing pants, right? But this is the thing about Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian history, right? It's heavily edited to play a narrative, but the truth is behind the scenes, right? If you look at this picture here, and you see this man here who is completely darkened out, right? And you read the caption here, it says, oxen were used, this is circa the 1900s, oxen were used to plow and drag the sugar fields. Kauai plantation was the first successful sugar plantation and was used as a blueprint for all other plantations in Hawaii, which would follow. So think about the 1900s, early 1900s. That's when the Puerto Ricans, the tribe of Ephraim, was brought in here to relieve all the other workers. If you come over here real quick, you can see all the other workers that were building and working the fields and stuff like that. This is the Koreans. This is the Koreans and the Filipinos and the Japanese, all the people that say, oh, we were out in the fields. We were out in the fields. So let's look at this, right? This is the caption for this picture, right? It says, Japanese woman plantation worker. It's not a Japanese woman, okay? It says, waves of immigration changed the face of the worker in the sugar fields. The women often were assigned the less physical work of stripping the dried sugarcane leaves from the stalks. However, a typical day for a woman began at 4:30 a.m. as she prepared breakfast and the lunches to be taken to work, and then worked in the fields from 6 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. This is much different in the history of the Puerto Ricans, right? As they worked from 18-hour days, just like slaves in Mississippi, right? So what they do here, they paint the narrative of a Japanese worker. You see a man here, you see him in the pants, but they say Japanese plantation worker to let you know that the Japanese were here because the Japanese is a majority. If you turn around, it says the Yamamoto store over there. Get that real quick, right? So their history is still here, and what we don't understand, and what we fail to realize is the status of Japanese plantation workers and everybody else is much different than the Puerto Rican plantation workers. If we come over here, right, we can find this picture right here, which has been vandalized, right? It says barbershop in 1910. Tadao Kawamoto, the famous barber of Kauai, probably served as an apprentice in a shop much like the one pictured here. Haircuts were 25 cents and a shave cost 15 cents. So when the Japanese, when the Chinese, when the Korean man said they came here and they was the small, the bottom feeding labor class, that's not true. They were business owners. When we were on the island of Maui, we saw the fishing ports where the Japanese owned fishing boats during the same time period and put up shrines to their god. Puerto Ricans were not allowed to do that. Matter of fact, the biggest adversaries of Puerto Ricans was the Japanese, because the Puerto Ricans being there was able to stop their labor strikes on the white man the Japanese people were producing, and it was making it so that their power curve was shifted. So this is the history that we don't tend to see in Hawaii because it's edited, it's heavily edited. But if you take a close look, then you can find the remnants of merchants from other nations that were able to establish long-lasting businesses, long-lasting franchises that are still thriving to this day.
So, our brother Blaze here, Puerto Rican, he said his grandfather, right, is from here, Kauai. All right, so we were just sharing with him. We actually gave him a flyer here. We go into the history. Give like 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Okay, good. So again, what we were teaching is history. All right. Do you know anything in all your years? You go to school here, right? So you're what? Early 20s?
Yeah.
20. Okay. I'm sorry.
20.
20. Okay. In all of your education so far, have you learned anything about Puerto Rican history? Or can you tell us what you know about the Puerto Ricans?
The closest thing I know about
Culturally.
culture, well, I gotta say not that much. Mostly like food and
Food?
sugar plantation.
Food and what?
Food in the sugar plantation.
Food and sugar plantation, all right? Which is very, that's true, but the question, the reason why I'm asking is culturally, who are they? We just left Koloa, is that what it's called? Koloa, right?
Yeah.
And you know how they have like a huge center, like a historical center, right, in Koloa, where it talks about, you see the Yamamoto store, and you see the hotel and all that stuff, and it says something very interesting. It said preserving the history of Koloa, right? There's things and accomplishments and artifacts that actually show Japanese culture. Yeah. But what about the Puerto Ricans? Because they've also put in work here, like you said, your grandfather worked on the sugarcane fields. Yeah. See, right? So, but wherever you go here in Hawaii, you don't really see that. Now, why am I saying all of this? Why am I keying in specifically on the Puerto Ricans? Because what a lot of people don't know and what we're not taught is the Puerto Ricans ancestrally or culturally coming from the island as the Arawaks or the Boricuas. Have you heard those terms before? Arawak Indians?
No.
Never heard that? Boricuas, you heard that term before? No. Okay, those are the indigenous people of Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow.
All right? So those are the people that came here to work in the sugarcane. Okay, so there's a lot of artifacts, right? Like and you can read through that later. There's a lot of artifacts, a lot of history that will show us and prove to us who those people are. But let me show you something real quick. Give me 28 and only oppressed. Was that 39?
Yes.
29. Watch this. Let me show you something.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 29.
So what we're doing is we're reading the books of Moses. All right. So when Moses brought his people out of Egypt, you familiar with "Let my people go"?
Yeah.
Right. Came through the Red Sea. Right. And he gave them laws, and then he said, if you keep God's laws, I'll bless you. If you disobey God's laws, then you're going to have punishments. In the Bible, they call them curses. All right. So I'm going to show you one of them, and I'm going to show you how it relates. Read that.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness.
So this is our people groping at noonday. It's almost noon right now, 10 a.m., right? Is it dark outside? No, we can see clearly. But God says spiritually we're going to be groping like it's pitch black. Why? Because we have no identity. We don't know who we are, right? I'm asking you, you've grown up here 20 years, right? You're in college, right? And you've never been taught who you are. But I bet you know a lot about the Hawaiians. I bet you know a lot about the Filipinos. I bet you know a lot about the Japanese, the Koreans, the Chinese. But you seem to be missing. There's an ancestry in you that you have no clue about. So what happens? You're just groping around. I don't know anything about that. I'm blind to that. And we find that a lot with our people here in Hawaii. You know, I've been in Hawaii for 20 years, and you find that a lot with our people in Hawaii. They have no frame of reference for who their people are when it comes to the Puerto Ricans or the so-called African Americans, right? There's even history of them too. But I don't want to sidetrack. You following us so far?
Yeah.
Finish.
And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore.
Only oppressed and spoiled evermore. Oh, evermore. All right, that's going into, it's continuing the thought of not having identity, right? Spoiled. You have a grandfather that actually worked on the sugarcane fields. There's no real, nothing tangible that we can go to and see the history of the Puerto Ricans here, right? Oppressed and spoiled, which means your grandfather and that lineage of so-called Puerto Ricans, they helped to prosper Hawaii, but they received nothing in return, right? You give all the revenue, all the everything, but you get nothing. That's like being robbed, right? That's like you giving me everything you own and just going and being homeless now. I basically robbed you. I did it nicely, right? It's the same thing that happened, right? That same thing happened to our people. But God calls those people the children of Israel. What's your name, brother?
Jay.
Jay?
Yeah.
Josiah, man. Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. I appreciate all y'all do.
Yep.
You guys so
Immigrants from where?
Ireland and Italy. Sicily.
We're not talking about that history.
I know, but I wanted to learn more about the American history and how much like slavery built America. You know what I mean?
That's not what we're teaching.
All right, well, let me know. I'm always down to find out more information. Information is knowledge is power, right? Ain't nothing wrong with learning more. What is it called? I just see it's TVC. What is it? IUTV? What is it? UIC.
We went all over the island and confirmed many things. Our goal was to, of course, reach our people and reveal to them they are the Israelites, but to also provide a platform to reveal the state of our people living in these islands.
Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ bless. We're here again finding out some history. Remember, the purpose of us finding this history is to explore more the history of the islands of Hawaii and how it relates to our people. One of the things that happened in Hawaii is that the oppression is shared, right? So we say, oh, all people is oppressed the same way, so it's no big deal for us, right? So we're all one people, right? But when we look at the history, we find certain specific timelines and dates where other people was doing okay. So here we have an example here, right? We have Wong Alawau. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but this is a tidbit with that we came across. This photo right here was taken in 1887. I want you to think about the time frame of what 1887, 1881, what that looks like for our people, especially here on the island, right? It says he grew rice. He was known as the Rice King of Kauai. Kauai is the place that we're in right now on the island of Kauai. He grew rice for 34 consecutive years from 1881 to 1914 in Kauai and Anahola, Kauai, right? This is important. Let me let the bus go by, right? This is important because there was a lot of people that said, oh, my ancestors were on the plantations and treated bad, but there was opportunity for enterprise for the other nations while it was not for our people, right? So here we go. We have Wong Alawau had the best of both worlds as a store owner and rice plantation owner, right? The store also served as a bank, post office, boarding house, and social gathering place for plantation workers and other Chinese in that area. So not only did this man have an enterprise, but he created a place for his people. Now if we go over here, we find it says the Wong Alawau family, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it doesn't really matter to me. It says first generation. It talks about how he came here as a sandalwood peddler, right? He came here in 1865, sponsored by a kinsman, right? It says he left his first wife behind, and he married other people to gain a social foothold. And eventually, he became well known during King Kalakaua's time. It says the purchase of King Kalakaua's home and life with Muhin. So he was able to purchase a large piece of land and property, and had an enterprise that he was able to pass down to his children, right? Now remember, this is a specific year that you always want to remember, 1900, because this is the year that the Puerto Ricans started being enticed and deceived into coming here under proper working conditions, but came in here by gun, by armed ship, armed guard, and was made to work here in the plantations so the Chinese, the Japanese, the Korean, the Hawaiians could receive relief. That's important to note, right? It says Wong Alawau family portrait taken in front of their Kapaa home around 1900 shows Chun Hu In, the Kaini or adopted daughter, wife Mu Hin with Vivian, Rose, and Molly. Those are his three stepdaughters. And he was Aram, right? So these are the portraits that they have on their property with their enterprise that was passed down from generation to generation. So this is important information to understand and important information for us to know so that we can understand the difference in social order between our people and the people of the land and the other nations. So one thing I want to roll back to, right, is that this Wong Alawau guy, right, he created he was a plantation owner, right, and on the land that he had, the store also served as a bank, post office, boarding house, and social gathering place for plantation workers and other Chinese in that area. That's something that Anthony D. Allen, we're going to keep bringing up that name, and I need y'all to look up that name. Anthony D. Allen was a black man that did these same exact things, but there's zero, if any, history of his presence on any of the islands of Hawaii. Right, and also what we know is while these lands that this man was able to purchase was able to go throughout the generations, but with Anthony D. Allen, it was taken back from him by the royal family that this man was cool with, right? So the relationship that he established with the royal family was able to flourish. The relationship with Anthony D. Allen, the black man, it flourished, and then it turned on its head. So they turned against him, took his land, and now his family is just dispersed through the annals of history, right, with no remembrance whatsoever. But this man, his family, he's known as the Rice King of Kauai. So it's a difference in status, a difference in history, not for lack of will, right? Not for lack of enterprise, not for lack of, it's not about laziness or black people didn't do. Black people was just as industrious as anybody else. But as you see, them curses hit, and now we're dispersed. And now on the island of Kauai, our people is just scattered and have no background information and believe that, well, everybody else was oppressed just like me, so we're all cool, right? So that's the thing that we're trying to point out, and we're trying to show the differences. No, you're not loved by everybody, and the history proves that. The history shows that. The history shows that you can have success if you're not black, and it can be enduring if you're not black. So stay tuned. We're gonna bring you some more history. Shalom. Most High in Christ bless.
White Asian features, they hold positions of power, financial power, social power.
So would you agree, because we've been told, I don't know, you can help us out, that more of the brown skinned people live on the west side of the island. Is that true?
Where it's dry, yeah.
Where it's dry, right? It's kind of like Oahu. We got Waianae and Makaha.
I've never been to Oahu.
Okay. So you came straight out here?
I lived on the Big Island before.
Okay. So is there a difference between Big Island and here?
There's more white control.
Here or there?
On the Big Island.
On the Big Island, okay.
But it's almost like the reincarnation of a whole bunch of slave masters. Like I'll give you an example. I was working on a farm, and the dude who was the manager, he gave me a job to break rock so I could plant tomatoes. So I broke 20 holes. Okay. So it was like 2 inches down and 3 inches wide. The next day, he gave me the same job, but before I did it, he wet all of the water, all of the plots, so it would be heavier. So I had to break it, then I had to lift the heavy wet.
Now, why do you think he did that? Was it just to see you work harder, or was it because, why would he do that?
It's a number of different.
Because you were maybe working too fast or something, or what?
Yeah, but I mean, he was racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was racist, and so I mean, there were other things that happened to indicate that. But that was just one example. But stuff like that happened all the time.
Absolutely, because we had somebody we knew that was on Maui that was actually working on a farm, and he was talking about how things weren't really ideal. So here's my question to you. What's your name? Ahav? Okay, I'm Hezeki. Here's my question. This is just a straightforward question. The idea that Hawaii is a paradise for black people, is that reality or myth?
That's a myth. I mean, okay.
You don't have to water it down.
I need to clarify that.
Okay.
The Aina, the earth, was created, like all of the spaces on the earth were created as heaven, as paradise for God's creation. So on that level, yes, but socially, the realistic, what's happening right now, no. This is a very uncomfortable place. I'll give you another example. I was arrested for dancing.
Damn. Out here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was arrested for dancing, and later on it got dismissed, but somebody said that they saw me and they got scared, and so the cops arrested me. And so, like, this is the type of shit, and I'd never been arrested, never had any criminal background, never had no problem, but coming here, it's like people always treating you like a criminal.
Right.
Like when I saw y'all walking down the street, that's why I was looking. I was like, "What these?"
Yeah.
Get into some trouble, like.
Nah.
Like if you a black person here and you hang out with a whole bunch of white people, a whole bunch of Asians, you cool. But black people together,
right?
You look, people. You see the hatred that you'll get.
Right. Now you know what's funny is we just talked to a sister who was working not too far from here, like literally a mile up the road. And she said the black people are full of shit. Those people here are full of shit because of what you just said. Right? Now I want to show you something. Say your name one more time. I want to show you something. Get me Proverb and Bible. Was that 39?
Yeah.
All right, Proverb and Bible.
Yeah. Stop.
I'm gonna show you something real quick. Because what we do is we're now able. You said you're from Jersey. All right. If you look at that flyer, what we're teaching and showing our black brothers and sisters is that you're not a black person, right? You're more than just a color and a crayon box. And a lot of the reason why we get this is because of what our ancestors did in skewing or going away from our God. Because what you just said is actually biblical prophecy.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 37. And thou shalt become
become an astonishment.
And what?
An astonishment.
Remember, you said, as we're sitting here, all we do is have a conversation, right? We don't know you, you don't know us. We just seen you, we stopped to speak to someone who looked like us, right? But everybody around us is like, what's going on? Shock, astonishment. What are they doing? Are they doing something bad? Are they doing some good? I don't know. Let's just call the police and find out. Right? Right? But we just read it. Read it again.
And thou shalt become an astonishment.
Go ahead.
A proverb and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead.
Even in Hawaii. That's why I asked you that straightforward question. I said, is it a myth or is it reality? Because no matter where we are, that situation is the same. Let me ask you a question. Do you mind if I ask you a personal question? All right. Were you born male or female?
Born female.
You was born female, all right? So that's why we use the Bible, right, to shape that reality, right? To shape that reality, right? Because these are the things we have to get our minds right. We have to get our minds right. Whether or not you accept it, that's what you know. We have to get our minds right. Give me Romans 1 and 18. I'm not 18, but yeah, watch it. Because
the King James version is like, it's been bastardized and changed, and like books have been removed, the wording has been changed.
So
to me, it ain't real until you read it in Hebrew, because there's certain things that change when you read the Bible in Hebrew.
Okay.
Like the whole verbiage and everything.
The spectacle behind us. Proof behind us, behind me.
Oh yeah.
If you look at everybody at the store,
right?
We're not dancing, we're not being aggressive, we're not fighting, we're having a conversation. But it's a spectacle to the world. Just to prove it. Just to prove it. Just to prove it.
All praise to the Most High God. The Israelites is here. We're not afraid of nobody.
It's not about. I'm not telling
It's not
you
about
this-
fear.
I'm not. It's not about fear.
It's awareness.
I'm just saying aware. Like
Now, where do
you're
we-
gonna attract a certain energy.
But what did the Bible call it? You remember? It said it's an astonishment.
Yeah,
The other nations are astonished at a group of black people. And we're here?
Yeah.
How y'all found each other here? Right? Go ahead, watch the read.
It's the book of Romans, chapter 1 and verse 25.
Now we've been talking about coming back together, right? That's what we've been talking about. Coming back together and relearning our history and our culture. Now, here comes the Inquisitor. So now the question is, what do we do with that information? Told you. Now the question, look. Curiosity. I just want to know what you got.
What's the movie? What's the movie?
The Black Rise in Kauai.
When's it coming out?
We're not sure yet. I'm just making all that stuff up because I just want to throw you for a loop. That's it. We're just trying to get the black experience out here in Hawaii. You familiar with the black experience in Hawaii?
No. Yeah. I'm with the paper, just letting you know. I just saw this from the road. I thought,
What paper?
From the Garden Island.
Garden Island?
But no, tell me about it. I moved here a week ago, so I don't know anything about anything.
Hey, you already with the paper?
Well, that's why I moved out with it.
That's why you said, what am I getting at when I said, when I talked about what you were born, male or female? It's because the Lord said there's a natural use of men and women. And the natural use of female is family, rearing children, rearing families, having children. That's how you develop a nation. There's no other way.
Agreed.
That's why I'm just answering your question.
The thing about it is, and that's why
Romans 12:2.
That's why getting the land and getting the food is important.
Absolutely. I'm not agreeing. I'm not
Because,
disagreeing.
Like, you'll read all of this stuff in the Bible about this is abomination, that abomination. But certain foods will cause certain hormonal reactions. Like this right here, my face right here, this started coming in when I hit puberty because at birth I was injected at birth. So I was born premature. At the time, they just experimented with like babies, injected with whatever kind of whatever. So like the thing about it is that you really gotta take into consideration those things that happen to people.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to things that happen hormonal and genetic level.
I'm not faulting you for what happened to you. A lot of our people have had many things happen to them. There's a book called Medical Apartheid where they talk about the experimentation on black children, on constantly, right? So we're gonna have effects of that to this day. But the question is, as we develop on, as we continue on to learn, right, to reconnect, do we then say accept it what they did to us? So they're saying, let me do the best that I can to return to my natural state.
The thing about it, wait, but I gotta say this.
Read that
The
real
thing about
quick,
it is,
real quick.
wait,
Come
no,
back
let
to
me
you.
say this.
Hold on.
No, I need to say this.
I don't want you to lose your point. Read that. Watch this. Don't lose your point.
Romans chapter 12, verse 2.
Watch this.
And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Read that again.
And be not conformed to this world.
Don't be conformed to this world. Read this.
But be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind.
By the what?
By the renewing of your
So
mind.
that's what I'm talking about.
That speaks of
Renewing.
where the healing begins.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
if you start with the healing on an intellectual level, it's not gonna work.
Okay.
You gotta create, like you say, the purpose and the space of women is to create family and nurture and stuff like that. But how many spaces really support the nurturing of a black woman? Really? Where a black woman could just relax and feel safe and actually focus on children. And not have to worry about finances. Not have to worry about safety. I'm not talking about the Bible. I'm talking about reality right now.
I got you. I got you.
Right now.
100%.
How many places
I understand.
where that
What's
exists?
the- Give me that, and then we can
Where a black woman can actually feel safe.
Now let me answer your question. Watch this. Read that.
It's the book of Zephaniah, chapter 2 and verse 1.
Come on.
Gather yourselves together.
Do what?
Gather yourselves together.
First thing you gotta do is begin. Once you transform your mind, what you said. Once you begin to transform, that's what you said. The healing starts, right? So once we begin to heal ourselves, the next step is to begin to come together. It's not gonna happen overnight. You know that, right? It's gonna take time, but we have to learn to come together instead of being so separated. That's why 6 black people in Hawaii is an astonishment, because they've never seen us unified enough to even have a conversation on a corner.
We used to scream black power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission. Minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold. From Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are how men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.